Just a reminder to our Speculating Wildly About Crime listeners, this is for entertainment purposes only and solely the thoughts and opinions of our team. We do invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Speculating Wildly About Crime, and happy Thanksgiving when you're watching this. I hope you're enjoying all of the good food and family and friends or whatever you choose to do for Thanksgiving. So for this episode, I think we're going to do something a little different today. Instead of covering a true crime case, we're going to let you guys get to know us a little better and talk about true crime and how we relate to it in various different aspects. So to kick it off, let's start by getting to know each other a little better. If everybody can just go around and introduce yourself. Janelle, do you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Janelle. I am in Dallas. I really love pink. I have a dog who's an asshole, as you've probably noticed. My entrance into true crime, like I was a real weird kid. So I loved Scooby-Doo. I watched it way longer than I should, and I always wanted to solve the mystery. And then my favorite TV show was Murder, She Wrote. I don't know if my mom got me started on this or if I got her started on this, but I loved Angela Lansbury. Anyway, then like always, like murder books, murder shows, scary movies. Like I will watch any scary movie, no matter how awful it is. But then I always listen to audiobooks at work. And so one day somebody was like, hey, this thing came out and you have to listen to it. You're used to this. And it was called Serial. And so that kind of started my podcast obsession. I was just hooked from there.
Jamie, you're next.
All right, my name is Jamie. I am originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Just moved to Tampa, Florida about 2 years ago. So I guess now I'm officially a Floridian. I have 2 kids who I love dearly. I have a 10-year-old son, Grayson, who plays football. I have a 3-year-old, almost 3-year-old daughter who loves to eat, doesn't miss a meal, and loves her some princesses. So they consume my life when I'm not sitting around these beautiful humans. And then a little bit about me in the true crime space. Really crazy thing. I think I was about 6 years old. I was in Milwaukee. And if anybody listening knows this case, please shout it out to me because I have no idea who the names are of these folks. But I lived on 35th and Hampton in Milwaukee, and there was a creek behind our house. And I remember seeing pictures of these girls. We're missing. We've last been seen in the park. And I remember asking my parents, did they go to my school? Why are we seeing these pictures? And then nothing. I never got any resolution to that. And it always just triggered me a little bit. And my parents loved to watch some John Walsh, America's Most Wanted. So we watch a lot of that on Saturday nights. And then the case that really sprung me into speculation world and brought us full circle to where we are today is JonBenet Ramsey. So once I got into that, I was hooked, and everything else from there is kind of history, if you will. So that's Jamie.
Cindy?
I'm Cindy. I am from the Twin Cities in Minnesota. Somehow people always hear the Minnesota. I don't mean to, but
I heard it.
They hear my accent. I have 2 kids. Mine are a lot more adult as far as I'm the oldest one, I think, in the group. So my kids are 24 and 20. We show dogs in our family. So my dogs are around, usually laying down or in another room. And I am going to school to get my master's in data science. So we'll see how that goes. Time to make a career change at 50? I don't know. And then what got me into true crime is I guess I've always been interested in it, but here in Minnesota, we had the Jacob Wetterling case, which a lot of people know of, a missing child that kind of sparked. Patty Wetterling was one that started the sex offender registry list, things like that. That'll be a case that I'll cover eventually here when I'm done with classes. So that was always got me interested in that. And then actually when I was on maternity leave with my son 24 years ago, I was watching Columbine shooting when it happened live on TV. So that's always stuck in my head too. And partly one of the reasons why I don't like guns And my kids always ask, or especially when my kids were younger, would ask, Mom, why are you watching all these shows with guns? You don't even like guns. I'm like, that's so I can understand how they do the crime so that I make sure we aren't doing those things. So I think that's part of why, at least that's my fascination isn't the right word, but why I think we learn a lot from true crime or just police procedural shows is just seeing what to be careful of and what to be warned of and what can actually happen in real life. Even though you always think everyone's the boy next door or the girl next door. Sometimes there's stories that come out in true crime that you see that you're not always safe anywhere. So that's it.
Missy?
Okay, hi. I'm Missy. I am from Wisconsin. I have some kids as well and a dog. And besides true crime is really one of my top things. That's super weird, which actually makes me happy that I found this group. This is what I mean. Growing up, you're weird because you're into that. But I was really happy I found this group of people that were just like me. And apparently there's a lot of them. So that makes me very happy. But besides true crime, I work at the Y. That's a job that I have, but I'm also a DJ. There's that too. But yeah, those are those things. On the true crime page, though, Jacob Wetterling was the case that did it for me as well. I remember watching that on the news and just being like, it just really stuck a chord with me, and it always bothered me until we did find out who did it, but it really bothered me. So that was the thing that did it. But then also when everybody on Friday nights were watching like Full House and the TGIF shows. You guys remember the TGIF?
Family
So everybody
Matters.
on Dateline NBC, Law and Order, like I never watched the other stuff. It was always that. So it ingrained for a very long time. But
And David?
First, I want to start out with saying Missy never gives herself enough credit or acknowledgement. She is also the brilliant host of another true crime podcast called This Story Is Nuts.
that's right. Thank you, David.
Yeah. And my name is David, and I am the host of Surviving Podcast. And it's true crime, but it's on the different spectrum, right? Like we don't know the victims. I can tell you who Jeffrey Dahmer is all day long. I can't name a victim of. And so my podcast is on the other side of that. We talk to the actual victims of the things. Love all of these girls so much, and I'm so glad to be a part of their lives and this journey.
And you didn't say where you're from, David.
I am from Tennessee. I was trying to hide that, Cindy, because if anybody knows anything about Tennessee right now, it's not the place to be. But people do ask me all the time, like, why do you stay in Tennessee? My connection to true crime is a personal connection, and people are like, why have you not left? And I want to be a part of the change, so I'm going to tough it out.
And what was like some of your first interactions with true crime?
If anyone knows the Susan Smith case, I was very young and I caught it accidentally on the news when I was not supposed to be watching the news because I was just too young for it. It's when news was on once a day. But that also showed me that like the monsters that I feared under my bed were actually real. And I've lived a lifetime of she's up for parole next in 2024. And it like that, hearing that case has just always stuck with me. Maybe I'll cover it one day, but that one is the one that got me.
That's Charlie Routier. That was like 15 minutes
Oh.
for me, which beautiful Jamie is gonna cover for us soon.
Yeah, that case wrecks my heart. I go back and forth every single time I listen to something.
All right, Dana, now it's your turn.
That's my turn. My name is Dana. I am from rural Western Wisconsin. I guess I'm like the rural living authority on this podcast, especially when it comes to talking about like, how is it possible they didn't have cell phone reception? And I'm like, they didn't.
Dana, remind us how many people your town has.
The one I'm currently living in is 800.
And prior to that, it was
400. That's
She's moved to the big city. She's moved on.
I know. I really am. I'm really moving up. We got a Dollar General recently, so that's very exciting. So yes, I love living in rural Wisconsin. So a lot of people are like, that's crazy, but I love it. And I have a cat who I absolutely adore. When people are like, crazy cat lady, I'm like, yep, that's me. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I only have one. He just gets all of my affection. And sometimes he's like, all right, okay, all right, enough, and he'll run away. And it is devastating every time. And gosh, I guess there's not much interesting about me other than that. But so my kind of peek into crime and true crime. As a kid, I read fiction crime books, the Alex Cross series by James Patterson. I think at the time there was like 11 or 12 books, and I read all of them over the summer. Bless my mother, because I had no business reading those at whatever age I was. She's go for it. I don't get it, but go for it. And near where I grew up, the first true crime thing that I remember being aware of was technically a mass shooting during deer hunting season. There was somebody that was trespassing on some land, and it's a whole long story, but I believe 8 people were killed in this interaction. And it was,
I remember this.
yes, it was right where I grew up. And I had a lot of like personal connections of people who were not victims, but since I was from the area, I knew people that were like first responders and all that. So that was the first interaction that I recognized as true crime. And then as I got older, I'm not even sure what podcast I started listening to, but it evolved from fiction, books, and I'm sure as it all happened for us, it just grew into what it is now.
Yeah.
So now that we've introduced ourselves a little more, I think now's a good time to segue into some of our questions that we can discuss as a group. Is there anyone that has a burning question that they want to start off with?
Of the questions that I have gotten for us as a group is how they would love a little bit more explanation on how we got together as a group. And I think Jamie would be the best person to explain this.
Yeah, so how we got together as a group. So as I mentioned earlier, I moved to Florida in 2021. So a little backstory on me. When COVID hit, I was trying to get pregnant with my daughter. Things weren't going great. And then all of a sudden they were, because I got pregnant with my daughter, and I also got sick during that time. And so I was just in a bad place. And when I had my daughter, my husband looked at me and said, hey, what do you want to do? We got to get a better house. Do you want to stay in Wisconsin? Do you want to move to Florida? And selfishly, I was like, listen, friends and family, I love you, but I'm going to move to Florida. And why that's important is because when I moved to Florida, I was like, okay, cool, we're here and we have all these beaches and it's nice outside. We have nobody to fucking talk to. We have nobody to fucking hang out with. And COVID was definitely still very much a thing up north. It was starting to fizzle out in Florida. In fact, not in Florida during COVID.
I thought it never
I
existed.
was gonna say, so it might have never existed, but again, wasn't here. I can't give you a firsthand account of it. But I was sitting around one night and I was like, I'm such an extrovert and I'm such an outgoing person. And I was like, you know what? I bet there's other people out there that really like to talk about this stuff. And we were all part of, I think it was the I Think Not group. And I put it out there and I said, would anybody really love to sit around and talk about their favorite murders? And I got a bunch of responses and I was like, okay, maybe this is going to be a thing. And one of our dear friends, Devlin, who isn't on today, but she was like, yeah, this is going to be a thing. Let's do it. Here's my Zoom. And the first time we set up a Zoom, it was just Devlin and I. And I said, what the fuck did I do wrong? I don't know what's going on. And she's okay. take everybody that responded, send them all personal messages. So I sent everybody a bunch of personal messages, and I was like, I don't want to log on next week. Nobody likes me. Nobody likes this. And next week we logged on, and a lot more people came into our chat, and it was actually a really good time. And as time moved on, we met a lot of great people along the way. Some came, some went, but this has been our core group. We're missing a couple of our cores tonight, but this has been great. We've been doing this now for, gosh, we turned 2 years old just a month
Yeah.
ago, right?
So I think
Yeah.
on that very second call where people actually showed up, that's when we decided, okay, so we're going to go like a rotation, and next week somebody's going to present a case for us to talk through, and the next week and so forth. And so what we have been doing on the podcast is essentially what we've been doing
For the last 2
this
years.
Yeah.
whole time. And so it's just really interesting to see, like, most of the time we're way more organized, sometimes not.
And I think it was a little push from Missy, who had her own podcast, from David, who had his own podcast, and from my son, who I think just sees dollar signs all the time, and he's, Mom, start your own podcast. And I think it was just finally this push of, hey, we're doing it anyways. Let's just hit the record button and see what happens, right? And it actually turned out to be pretty cool. It also turned out to be a lot more work than I ever expected in my life. But it was work that I was very happy to do.
Yeah, and we've definitely all become very good friends. In
Yeah.
addition to talking every Thursday night, we also have a group chat that just explodes. Every day we're
Sometimes we have
just
to mute it.
messaging each other. Yep. Sometimes we're talking about crime. Sometimes we're just talking about, hey, I had a bad day. I need to vent. And this group of people is just amazing. We are very welcoming. We are lifting everybody up here. You can't have a bad day if we're around, or at least we'll do our very best to cheer you up or send you alcohol, whichever works.
Of course.
Janelle almost loves everyone. And
Almost.
but before we move on, no one has asked this question, but I feel like it would be a really cool thing to discuss. Is some of us have periodically met each other because we're all over the United States and Canada. But this past weekend, and I know it's not the same weekend when the recording is released, but most of us met for the first time, and it was amazing. And we were all together for 3 days, and we had the time of our lives. And it was like,
We broke ourselves, but we had the time of our lives.
it
And
was
other thing,
I am shocked that I have alcohol in this cup tonight. I'll just say that.
it was so
drink
amazing.
your water.
I just thought that was so cool because you all were everything that I pictured, right? Like, I did not ever think I was with a stranger. I've spent 2 years with you guys, and it was just to touch you and hold you and just look at you and laugh with
But
you.
don't get me in trouble with my husband now. We didn't hold anybody.
Janelle spooned me for a little bit, and then she realized.
I need photographic proof of that until there's receipts.
Was that when I like fell on the floor of a hotel hallway?
I'll go next because I have a question that I'm curious about everyone's answers. So we're going to be talking a lot about true crime and how we relate to true crime tonight. But my question for everyone is, what are your interests for true crime adjacent topics, genres, discussions? And if you want an example, I can provide mine.
Please.
Okay. Right now, my true crime adjacent is MLMs.
Oh.
That's something right now that I'm like very much watching the documentaries and listening to the podcasts. And it just is, it's insane to me, all of the facts, statistics, and general information that I'm learning about MLMs that are evil. So that's my kind of true crime adjacent interest right now. Janelle?
Okay, I'm gonna try to not get us canceled. I feel like I'm in Dallas, like I said, so I can say this, but all this shit that's going on with that ex guy that used to be our president, If that's not true crime, I don't know what is. You guys all know, I think I missed Thursday night sessions to watch the January 6th committee
Yeah.
hearings
Yep.
because that was my like favorite soap opera. Anyway, I am just I hope this ages. I'm just really curious to see what happens in the next 2 years.
Cindy?
I don't know exactly, but I'm in Minnesota. It's true crime. We had a lot, obviously, to do with George Floyd, and so in our area was a lot of Black Lives Matter. We had all of those types of things. We did a lot of walks, even for like abortion rights as well. Although Minnesota's a safe state, come here, we're good, safe haven, all that good stuff. So I guess mostly just I love to bring. I'm like a social justice warrior, which sounds horrible, that term, but anything that where we can bring up voices that are not centered all the time. That's what I really like to do. I was part of the human rights campaign for a while. I've done a lot of different other charitable works like that. So those types of things are really important to me. And somehow they always have some relation to true crime. And I might ask a question about that later too, where missing and murdered Indigenous women and just the fact that there are more Black men in prison than any other denomination, any other race, even though they don't make up that percentage of the population. All those types of things that are true crime related in some regard. So those are the types of things that I try to peg off of and try to bring those things out in our cases when we can. And we usually, those cases, even when we will be covering them, sometimes they'll have the least amount of information just because of whatever demographic that they fit into, which is not fair, but that's how things are, which we need to start working on and changing.
Yeah.
Louder for the people in the back.
Yep.
And I know Cindy didn't want to say that she is a social justice warrior, but she definitely is ours. She's constantly bringing to light, hey, there's this abortion walk going on. Hey, there's this Black Lives Matter going on. I think we were in a hotel room. She wasn't even staying with me. And she was like, you need to post a picture of the background to put on. Cindy, what was the name of the or the website for people that were trafficked, human trafficking?
Yeah, I can't remember that web. Yep, but yep.
So Cindy is always a person in our group bringing up our knowledge of that. While you're not America's social justice warrior, you're definitely the SWACPAK's social justice warrior.
Thank you.
David, you're next.
So in the past few years, it's become a reality to me of me being a minority. It was never, I'm a white man leading, right? And as reality was sinking in and realizing that's what I might lead with, but that's not what I am. And realizing from some own personal trauma that people truly believe that men cannot be raped and men cannot be sexually abused, especially quote unquote gay men. And that's not true. And it's become a passion of mine to bring awareness to that.
Yeah, that's very true.
We love you, David.
We love you so much and hate everything that you've been through. And you're right, that message needs to keep being said loud and clear until people get it ingrained in their heads.
Yeah.
Which side note, I think was it last week's podcast of David surviving. He had a similar case, right? That was a man that was in a domestic violence situation, I think.
And he was even a heterosexual man.
Yep.
So I'm so glad that people are starting to speak out, especially the heterosexual men, because until they start speaking out, it's never going to become a reality. No one's ever going to believe it until that privileged male says, oh, wait, no, this does happen.
Agree.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump on Cindy's bandwagon because from the day I was, 4 years old, I have been against racism. And I grew up in inner city Milwaukee, and it was a predominantly Black neighborhood I went to, predominantly Black school I went to. And one message that my mother told me my first day of kindergarten. I remember she lined my brother and I up against the wall. And even though my brother wasn't going to school because he was younger than me, she was like, I need to teach you all a lesson. And this is verbatim. You are going to meet Black people, brown people, purple people, yellow people, blue people. Everybody is a person, and you need to treat them as if they are people. And I took that lesson and I've tried to bring it out into everything in my life. There's still systemic racism in this country and it shouldn't be this way. MLK didn't die for us to still be in the same place that we are at today. And I can be on a soapbox forever, and that's where I'm going to end it. But I do not want to take away from Cindy, so I will take another one. The other soapbox I can get on is mental health. I hate what this country has done with mental health. I hate that it's taboo to go to your therapist. And yes, you can say fucking all day long, and that makes you feel better too. But we need to have a third party to talk to about our problems. We also need to realize that I don't want to put a number on it because I feel like when we throw statistics out there, it's sometimes unbelievable. But a lot of the crimes that happen, the mass shooting that just happened in Maine, many of the mass shootings that happened, there is an underlying mental health issue. And you know what? When we break our legs, what do? We go to the doctor, we get our legs fixed. When we have cancer, what do? We go to the doctor, we have a surgery, we get it fixed. When we have mental health, what do? Nobody knows unless somebody says something because you don't wear it on your sleeve. You're not limping around the hallway. And so it just needs to become more socially acceptable to go to a therapist, to admit that I'm not feeling okay today. I am having a bad day. I need to take a mental health day. I need to go talk to a therapist, whatever it is. But if we can normalize that, I wholeheartedly believe we will see a lot less crime because a lot of people act out because they don't know how else to express their feelings.
Mhm.
So those are my soapboxes. If you ever want me to talk for 3 hours, ask me about either of those subjects and I will do it.
Missy, did you want to go next?
Okay. So Jamie had such a good answer. I don't even know how to follow that up. That was
Sorry.
such a good answer. Going with the mental health thing and taking from that and bringing it a little bit further, we can talk about bullying. I have kids, I have teenagers. Kids are assholes. And I'm saying that because they are so mean to each other, especially the teenagers. They're really just jerks. And it breaks my heart to have to see that and to know that kid that's bullying is probably suffering and going through something themselves. You know what I mean? So that goes back to that mental health aspect of it. And yeah, I don't know. I think that those kids need help just the same as anybody else. They're not doing it for no reason. They are reaching out. It's like a cry for help. So that's something that I really just being a mom in general, just having to be concerned about my kids and them being bullied or anything like that.
I have a good one that this
Okay.
is something I want to do. Have any of you guys done any of the DNA ancestry tests? And if you have, or if you plan to, are you going to then upload your results to someplace like GEDmatch where the forensic DNA people can use those to see if they can find criminals in your family tree?
Question.
I'm totally doing it because, first of all, I'm not sure what my family on one side, I've never met my dad's side of the family. So if they're criminals over there, I can bust their ass easy. And if they're not, great. But then there might be some on my side. I don't
like it.
I have not done it, and I feel like a total hypocrite because one of my biggest things is I feel like at birth, you should immediately get your DNA taken and it be like put into the system.
We talked about that in an episode, remember?
There's so many. I just listened to a podcast this week about this woman who sent hers to GEDmatch, and that's how they connected this murder to a person that in her family that she had never met. And that is just bananas to me. Maybe we should all make a pact that we will do that.
Maybe if we ever get a sponsor, we can get 23andMe and then.
And I was just gonna give them a shout out. So I did do 23andMe, and it opened up my eyes to a lot of things that is for another podcast. But a stupid true crime me, did not know that you could send it to this place and have this stuff happen. So I have the pack to do that. 23andMe, if you want to throw some stuff at us.
So I
Yeah.
think it's still like a sticky gray area because I think you have to agree to have to have it used.
Yeah, you have to opt in. They used to automatically opt everybody in, and then at some point they opted everybody out, and then you had to opt. But
We'll have
I
church
think,
to do this weekend.
yeah, I think David, I'll send you the link to Jed Match at least, and maybe we can add that in our show notes, so maybe other people will do that.
That would be awesome.
That's great.
I like that, because I'm sure I'm not the only person who's done 23andMe and didn't know that was a thing. Or at least please pretend I wasn't.
And my mom had done a 23andMe or an Ancestry DNA or whatever it was. And so for the longest time, I'm like, I know half my stuff. That's good enough. So maybe I need to do it and figure out the other half and send it in.
Missy.
No, I've never done it. I've never been interested in doing it. However, I would love to do one on my dog. That's it.
And still send it into Jed Match, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they cross-reference for canine convicts. Worth a try.
David,
what about you?
So I bought 10 of the test kits to give out as gifts. I have this gift closet that I have at my house. That way, if people come over unexpectedly for a holiday or something, I have something to give them. But I've never done it myself.
I have not done it, but I'd mentioned that my mom did it. So I just was like, oh, that's good enough for now. And I've got the old family story on my dad's side that my grandma was 100% Czechoslovakian and my grandfather was 100% Swedish. And when my mom started going into that side's family tree, and she's like, yeah, here's Norwegian. So right there, that story's done. So I'm like, at this point, whatever. Missy, do you have a question that you would like the group to explore?
Yes, I do. You can ask one person in the true crime world. It could be anybody. Like when I say true crime world, that is anybody whose name is in the true crime world. Like Casey Anthony, for example, Michael Peterson, for example, Scott Peterson, for example, the owl, right? You could ask one person, and they have to answer honestly. And you got one question. Who and what's the question?
Love this. I can go first because I'm fucking dying to know this, and I will cover this case soon, I promise. Brian Schaefer. What happened to you? Where are you? Did a friend kill you? Did you run away? Did you meet foul play on the way home? Are you buried in the concrete? I have so many questions for you. I don't know.
That's a good one.
So I was thinking it had to be somebody that was like you actively could ask a question if.
No, they could be dead.
Oh, then I'm gonna go with Maura. Tell me, girl.
Yep.
I think I'm going to go a different route with this. And for some reason, my heart is telling me Shanann Watts.
I just figured out your case that you're going to cover.
I just got chills. Oh, yeah.
And while it seems like we know, on the outside, it's like we know what happened. But for some reason, my heart is just saying, like, I want to talk to her. And I want to, like, it seems like such a silly question, but are you okay? Because all of the crap she had to go through, presumably before her family was
Like the last 5 minutes. Like, can
Yeah.
you give me like the Cliff's Notes of how it actually happened?
And I don't personally, I'm like, I don't even need to know like exactly what happened, but just for some reason, like almost I want to give her a hug because to have you and your children go with you in such a senseless way, I just
Oh,
for
well,
some reason,
I'm
my
a
heart
total
is saying, I just want to, for some reason, it's going to Shanann Watts. David?
I want to be creative and say that I want to talk to Scott and Lacey's Peterson's dog. Like, I feel like the dog saw so much that could solve everything. I didn't have that thought until 10 seconds ago when you gave your answer. But if you don't know, and as you will learn throughout our podcasting journey together, I'm obsessed with Kaylee and Casey Anthony. I would love to just hold Kaylee's hand and just say, you know what, this is a safe place. What can I do for you?
I like that.
Yeah. Sadie?
It's a happy episode. Like, what happened?
You guys all went way
Thanksgiving.
deeper than I was gonna go, and now I feel like an asshole for my answers.
That's how I felt with my MLM true crime adjacent. I was like,
No,
I'm
we
an
need those
asshole.
answers. We need that.
I'm probably not going to go much better, but I'm actually surprised that no one mentioned the Heyman Lee or Adnan case.
I'm-
Just how to
Listen,
figure out what happened.
It was number 2. You can only pick
Yeah.
one. I have 17.
And I'm not picking that one. I'm just saying I'm surprised. I know. See, I want to go old school and go the Zodiac killer, somebody like that, because he's never been found. Was that really him? All of that stuff. Was it a copycat? Was it one of my what's the right word? His ciphers. What was all that about? All that good stuff. So that would be a non-current answer.
That's a
All
good
right,
answer,
Missy,
though.
give us some light.
I had so many answers this entire time because there are so many. Now, actually, after I had asked it, I realized how hard of a question it actually was because there's so many people. If you just could ask one part, I should have made it a little bit more.
Oh gosh, Missy's gonna say Taylor Business.
Oh no. You know what? I'm not.
Why do you cut penises off? I don't understand.
Oh, okay. Okay. That case. Real quick, when researching that case for my podcast, I had to take a break and stop. It made me roast out.
Yeah.
I think I messaged all of you and was like, you guys, I don't even feel comfortable telling you what she did. And it's nasty. Yeah.
And welcome to Wisconsin.
And welcome. Yes, that's right. Man, so now like I said, I feel like an asshole. You all had really deep ones, really wonderful answers. And my answer to my question, because I couldn't think of anything else this entire time, is actually right now, since I covered the Brianna Maitland case, I'm almost like that's my case now that I want to know the answer to. For me, I actually would ask, see, maybe it's not. I was going to say Keys if he did it, but now I could just say I'll ask Brianna who did it, and then we would have the answer. I just want to know what happened to her. But I guess if it wasn't Keys, then he would say no, and then I wouldn't have the answer.
You have to ask Brianna.
I'd have to ask her what happened.
Hang on. If Keys is on the table, then
Keys is always on the table now.
I'm gonna pick him and ask. I can only ask one question.
Only one. But he has to honestly answer it.
How many people did you murder?
Okay, yes. And then we'll give that answer to Josh. And now he has a lifelong goal. I like this.
Okay, so Missy, I thought you were going to say Phoebe, or I thought somebody was going to say Phoebe.
We only said one.
That's what I
It's
said.
too
There's
hard
like
of a question.
8,000 people I want to ask a question to.
So many.
Phoebe
Okay.
is coming for us.
All right, who's up next for a question?
David, Jamie, Janelle.
Okay, so I got one before you guys steal it. So current open case. Pick one that you want 1,000% of the information solved, done.
Are we gonna fight after this?
Maybe.
Probably.
I'll
still
break
be
the ice at
friends.
this one, but I'm gonna have to go classic JonBenet Ramsey, I think.
I knew it would be in there.
I gotta go classic with that one. I think, especially with right now how they have testing that they could potentially do. I'm not sure all the details right now of how that's not being done or if there's situations, but if we could get that figured out, I think that's a good one.
I like that.
Jamie?
You know, luck.
David?
Oh,
Sorry.
Oh, I'm gonna go second. Okay, I thought it was gonna go last. My
David
first
just looked like
instinct,
he was trying to like contemplate his answer very quick, so I'm like, let's
Do-
catch him off
you,
guard.
you can go first, David, before I do this. Before Janelle cuts me
I
off.
know what David's answer is going to be.
I don't think you will.
Let's hear it
I
then.
might surprise you, Janelle.
Okay,
But
bring it.
mine would be O.J. Simpson
Whoa.
because I love speculations, I love theories, and when I hear the whole story behind is he protecting his son, really gets me. So I have questions on
but
Thank
he wrote a book that tells you what he did.
that.
I mean,
Jamie, what was yours?
I would originally tell you Adnan, but after a deeper dive into that case, I don't believe we need to ask him anymore because the timeline just doesn't make sense. And that is for another episode.
No, it's not.
or
So
30.
So I know I just answered this before, but I am legitimately obsessed with Brian Shaver case, and I really just want a fucking answer. I really do. And I really believe that somebody knows something that happened that night because somebody does not walk into a bar and not walk out. Somebody does not go to a bar with three friends and those three friends don't know what happened to you. It just, there's so much out there. Somebody definitely knows podcast about how not a lot of people can keep secrets unless it's in the case of KJ, that 100 people can keep secrets. But in the case of Brian, if he wasn't met with foul play, or even if he was, I guess if he wasn't living a secret life, somebody knows something, right? And maybe the person's dead, and maybe that's why we don't know what happened. But that's my hill I want to die on.
So I think mine, which I will cover here shortly, is the Jody Huisentrude case of the reporter that went missing before her live taping or her live news broadcast in Iowa. Some of it has a few ties to Minnesota as well, because she's from Minnesota, things like that. And that one is just, it's been out there forever. I think the advantage that we're getting here is we're having some long-standing cases like Golden State Killer, like the Bardstown, Delphi, the List, all of those, they're getting solved. So I think we're going to start seeing more of these cases getting solved, hopefully. But that's one that I would like to see.
Absolutely. Missy.
It was actually not too long ago, up until not too long ago, Delphi was the case that I actually couldn't watch or read or anything about it for the longest time because it bothered me so much. So that was my number one. So I was so happy, and let's hope for the best in that, being that this guy goes away forever and ever, of course. But then I think for me right now, and I just mentioned, but Brianna Maitland again, yeah, that one when I was, like I said, when I was doing all the research for that and doing a little deep dive, it really started to get to me too. It started to bother me a lot. Yeah. So that one for me is the one.
I solved it for you though. It's the police were involved.
You always solve them, Jamie.
Police corruption.
Just kidding. Just kidding. She is very
Or
much
aliens.
a cold case.
Janelle, did you have one or did I miss yours?
I'm shooting for the moon here. If I name one person, but it was involved, like it has many tentacles, then I get all of those. That was included in my question. I want all the shit on Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know everybody
Oh,
connected.
Whoa.
I want to know every single name, every single person that went to that island, all of it. And I
yeah.
want it published in a book for the world to see, because I don't want any of these people to ever get like any respect or money,
Yeah.
power.
I love that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I want it all out there.
David, what's your question?
So I have a question that I would love to ask. So being a minority and going through certain challenges in life, I've noticed differences. And I see how some cases get publicity and some do not. I would love to ask you guys, is there a case of a minority that is not getting the publicity that you wish it would, that sticks with you? And if so, could we put it on our list to cover? But one of the reasons I picked Kylan Schulte and Crystal Hunter is because it was a lesbian couple that got what little recognition they did because of another case.
Mine is Daniel Robinson, and some people might know his case because it was covered on some social media outlets and it was on an episode of Disappeared. But I also feel like it just wasn't out there enough. I feel like if he was a Gabby Petito, this would have been spread all across the fucking country. Instead, it wasn't because he was a black man who, by the way, worked, I don't think it was NASA, but like something very similar to it. So a very smart black man who went missing in the desert. And we still don't know where he went. And I'll get back on my mental health soapbox. He may have had a mental health issue that we don't know about, and that might be where he is. And I will put this on the list. I forgot I wanted to cover this, but I am going to cover this. This is a case I want to cover, but I wholeheartedly believe he didn't get the publicity that a lot of people do because he was a black man. And he also happened to go missing in a time when a lot of other people were missing. So for me, it's Daniel Robinson.
So mine is, so I know like we've made some really great strides in the past couple months on Lisk, but there's a whole lot of other people that just weren't cared about for so many years because of their work. They were sex workers. And I think it's great that progress is being made. I don't know why we had to sit on it for whatever 12, 13 years, but it's great that progress is being made. But think about if the police department, which Jamie, say it.
They're corrupt.
I'm hoping that now we're at a place where we can move past that and just treat a person like a person. I know,
hope so.
like way too optimistic, but
I think we're still years away from that, though.
We are.
this case will always stick out to me. Like that didn't make them any less as
Well, it's
people.
like when you were talking about that, it reminded me of Cleveland Strangler. He specifically targeted sex workers because they wouldn't be noticed. And how shitty is that? Some of those women had a house that they went to and bills that they paid and children that they supported. And that just happened to be the line of work that they were in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think mine is going to be Cindy Elias in northern Minnesota. She was found murdered in 1977. And from the research I've done at this point, it seems like a solvable case. I'm not sure if it's just due to resources or what the situation is exactly, because I haven't done a deep dive into it, but it just seems like to one of those cases where if people put more energy into it, it would be solvable. And I believe it is Minnesota's oldest cold case. I could be wrong though. Missy or
Yeah,
Cindy?
I have a couple. I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of cases with the missing and murdered Indigenous women that could be touched on a lot more. I know Connie Walker obviously is doing a lot of work with that. And then David Ridgen is doing it on his Somebody Knows Something podcast quite a bit, those two. But then also there's another podcast called The Fall Line that has been doing, they did a whole series, their first season on the Millbrook twins that went missing. And that's been from since 1990 that they've been missing. Just two young girls that went, two young Black girls that went missing. So there's a lot of cases, there's just too many to mention. And the fact that we can't roll those off the top of our heads like we can the others, that kind of speaks to the reason why they all need to be solved, is because they're just not as well known, or sometimes they had to be drug along. Like I think Jamie, you mentioned Gabby Petito. I remember I was listening to a podcast just a couple weeks ago, and I don't remember which one, that was also talking about a young Black man that went missing right before she did in that same area. And his family was able to at least use some of that publicity to get publicity on his case, but he's still missing.
But then once I started to figure out that she was gone, obviously they're looking all over for her, but the police don't want to help and there's no help. And just cases like that where you hate to say it, but if she was white, maybe it'd be a different story or something like that. I hate that's the way that is sometimes. And that really is frustrating. But because I had recently just watched this episode and it just broke my heart. You know what I mean?
While we're on this, can we stop the narrative of it's just a runaway? Like, how many cases have we covered just in our little span so far where
Kayla, Brianna,
Mara,
Mara.
Or they're going missing, they're an adult, they can go missing on their own.
Yeah.
Or they can just go missing.
That was a good question though, David.
Thanks. I would love for us to, as a group, to find a way to represent these cases. Thank you all for answering that question and saying those people's names. That means a lot to me. So thank you for that.
I think that's one thing that we should start in our Facebook group or in our chat, is just having a list of those cases that we post maybe once a week until they're solved. And we can keep adding to that list. If people want to send us lesser known cases, we may or may not cover them, but at least we can promote them on all of our socials so that at least people's names are out there as much as possible. And any links that maybe to their Facebook pages, and or if there's GoFundMe or any type of things like that, and any of like local law enforcement or whatever agencies may be covering or maybe dealing with that case, if we can push that information out as well, that would be great.
I love that. That's good.
Absolutely. Jamie, are you the last one that hasn't asked a question yet?
I haven't, and I'm gonna make it light. What I want to say before I jump into my question is these were all questions that were needed to be asked, need to be answered, and they're all things that we are all passionate about, and a lot of things that just don't get enough attention or just don't have enough time spent on it or whatever it is. While it was heavy, it needed to be heavy, right? We need to bring attention to these things. So I will wrap it up with, what is your favorite fun? Y'all heard me say the word fun. What is your favorite fun guilty pleasure outside of true crime? Like when you need a palate cleanser, you go to ABC. And I'll go in the order of my screen because I'm last. Dana, you're first.
Fun palette cleanser. It sounds just silly because I'm gonna sound like a crazy cat lady again, but honestly, just like touching and petting and snuggling my cat is that grounding moment for me. And I'm very lucky that he is like my little shadow. And he's always just like, it's funny when I'm cleaning the house and I'm bouncing between rooms and he's just like right behind me. And it just feeling like that grounded animal energy. I very much, and also why it hurts so bad when he's okay, we're done snuggling now, bye. And it's also interesting because in cases when I've noticed that he's sick and we take him to the vet, they're like, what are his symptoms? And I'm like, he's just laying behind the couch and he's not following me around. And they're like, that's not a symptom, ma'am. And I'm like, yes, it is.
He's just taking a nap.
Yeah. He's taking a nap outside of my view in a spot he doesn't normally lay. Like, he is not feeling well. So I would say that's my palate cleanser is just hanging out with my cat. And I am a loser, if anybody's wondering.
You're not. We want all of your cat pictures and memes. Please send them to our SWACPod@gmail.com and we will gladly give them to Dana every Friday,
Yes.
even if she's not feeling sad.
I always want cat pictures.
Missy, what's your palate cleanser?
First of all, Dana, you're not a loser. Relaxing with a cat all day or whatever sounds freaking relaxing, okay? It sounds perfect right now. Just chill, which would be great. But my palate cleanser is, I'm going to say music, because music's always been my thing. Even when I was watching Dateline, I was listening to music at some point. I've always just been huge into music. And so when I'm not listening to true crime, I'm listening to music. And that's, that's my thing.
And your son's in show choirs.
He is, yeah. And he is also into music as well. Part of me regrets the fact that I was so into music that when I was pregnant with him, I put the headphones on my belly and played like Mozart and Modest Mouse and Death Cab for Cutie and the Postal Service and all of those things. And now all he does when he's not at school is sit downstairs and make music, which is great. But also it's all day, every day. You get to hear all the rap beats from the basement that just sound like booms.
I love that.
Yeah. But
and as a plug, because we talked about this when we were just on our trip, but Janelle, can you tell everybody what concert they need to go to if they want to conceive a baby?
Oh, Modest Mouse.
For things.
Oh, I could see that.
But also, you need to have me go to the concert with you. If anybody wants to have a baby.
Not with Janelle, but
pregnant.
Not with me. Let's look at the tour. You fly me out. We'll go to the concert, and then the baby will come later.
it's conceived after the concert. Yeah.
I have no other involvement than just drinking with you at a concert. That's it.
So
true story. Twice.
Did happen. Did happen. David, what's your guilty pleasure? Fun guilty pleasure.
First, I want to say that Janelle would never admit that I am her guilty pleasure, but I have this picture right here that shows that I am her guilty pleasure. Mine is anything Reba. Like, I will.
There she is.
Yeah, she fits.
I was waiting for her to make an appearance.
Like, I'll take my lunch break and I'll go sit in my car and I'll just sing a Reba song. Like, anything Reba McEntire. Hashtag Reba President 2024 dash eternity.
I love that. Cindy.
I was gonna say like listening to podcasts, but almost all my podcasts are true crime. However, if they're not true crime, my other two things they are hockey, Minnesota Wild mostly, but I also listen to some generic hockey podcasts. And then, of course, I listen to social justice podcasts. Shocking, I know. So those two things. And then I was going to also say like TV shows, but then again, all my TV shows are Law and Order, Criminal Minds, NCIS, But of course, I guess the only non-true crime, those aren't true crime, but is only Murders in the Building. Again, I don't have a whole lot of non. And then my dogs, because like I said, we show our dogs. Many weekends we're gone busy doing that all weekend. My son shows the dogs and his girlfriend, and they have a dog as well that they show. It dogs for sure. That you just get the dog snuggles are good too. While I'm watching Law and Order, Criminal Minds, NCIS.
So on the same vein with Missy, but music is a no-brainer, but concerts, if I had the money and the people that I wanted to see, I would be at a concert every night. It's just, but then hang on, I also have to take off work the next day after every concert I see because I have the post-concert blues. So that would not work. Anyway,
Drink more water.
I didn't say hangover, Cindy. I said post-concert.
I thought that was the same.
The typical, yeah, it is. Whatever. There's just nothing better than seeing a band that you adore and like just not giving a shit about anything else except for that moment. Like people ask all the time, and what was your favorite part of the COVID times? And mine will always be all the virtual concerts. Like people were like all my people were doing like every week I had like different virtual concert, and I would literally go get myself ready to see nobody. But go get like actual concert ready just to sit on my couch or dance in front of the TV or whatever. And my dog at the time, absolutely miserable. She's like, I can't believe we're doing this shit again. But anyway, I wish that would continue. But anyway, yeah, concerts. It's like I was very conflicted. I told you guys I had to buy a concert ticket for a Thursday in February, and it made me very sad because that's our date night. But
Yeah.
What about
Well,
you, Jamie?
you get a sick day. It's okay. Gosh, I'm literally torn between three things, and maybe my friends can help me out and tell me which one is my favorite because I'm really not quite sure. But I love a good reality show. I don't care if it is Love is Blind, any franchise of the Housewives, Vanderpump Rules. I will sit in front of the TV and watch that for 10 or 15 hours, and I am just in my happy place, laughing, crying, yelling at the TV. That is me. But I'm also love to travel. Like I got off the plane on Sunday night and I was like, okay, when's my next flight? Where am I going? What am I doing? Where am I? So that is also me. And my happy place is also on a plane and in an airport bar having a drink before I get on a plane.
you said a drink.
I listen.
Drink more water.
We've met you in real life now.
Having a few drinks before I get on the plane. And then my other happy place is at a sporting event. So similar to Cindy's hockey, if I'm sitting in an NFL stadium or even in a sports bar watching NFL, I may block out some of my friends having conversations while I'm watching games. I don't know. They're all three equally my favorite guilty pleasures, and I don't know which one comes ahead. I suck.
I did miss a hockey game tonight watching it to be here with you guys.
That's
Yeah.
They did lose.
To be fair, nobody else said that.
Well, it was a given until you said I have so many.
I know. I thought we could only answer with one answer.
I thought that one was already
Now I have
unspoken.
12 answers.
That's the big elephant in the room that we would rather spend time with each other than anything else.
Correct. And I think we've all made decisions to do that, which I think is great. But yeah, that's my question. Dana, I mean,
Awesome.
do you have anything to, do we all ask a question? Do we need to
I
wrap
think
it up?
I think we all asked a question, and I really hope that our listeners got to know us individually a little better. Maybe we got to know each other a little better too.
I've learned a thing or two.
For a Thanksgiving episode. Hopefully, if you were just like cooking in the kitchen alone, this wasn't like a bummer for you. But you know what? We all got together. We all hopefully can have a good time. While we didn't really speculate much this week, we will always have more to speculate wildly about in the future. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy
Thanksgiving,
Thanksgiving.
everybody. We don't want you to miss any of our future recordings. Please take this time now to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok at SWACPod. That's SWACPOD. Or you can contact us via email for any questions, comments, or case ideas at swacpod@gmail.com. Thank you for speculating wildly with us tonight.